Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Lysha and I'm the owner of Lysha Be Creative. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be showing you the tumbler press from HTV and giving you a full review as well as testing this out on 3 different styles of tumblers or products to use when sublimating using this press. So I wanted to give you guys kind of the ins and outs of what I thought of today's product and give you the step-by-step on how to use it. Of course, everything I use for today's video, including a link to this tumbler press, will be linked in the description box, as well as discount codes for lots of other products that I like to use in my everyday crafting. Before you go, be sure to give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And let's go ahead and jump right into today's tutorial. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, of course, is unbox this press. So this press was sent to me. This is an HTV want press. I have used their heat press for like shirts and apparel and things. I have a review for that on my channel as well. And so now we're going to review sort of their tumbler press. So their tumbler press reminds me sort of like the shape of it, like the Cricut heat press, but it definitely fits much larger tumblers to be able to use. So inside the box, of course, was the manual. It came with heat gloves as well as heat tape, which is awesome because the other press I bought did not come with all that fun stuff. So this was kind of nice that it kind of was all together. So all you'd need is just your sublimation supplies. So unboxing this and kind of unwrapping everything, this is kind of what it looks like. It's really easy and compact. It definitely doesn't take up a lot of space. And I do like that you don't have to worry about a lever. The manual is really short, like really simple, really easy. There isn't any reason why anybody should be confused with how to use it. It's really straightforward. So before we can, of course, use this press, we do need to get into printing our sublimation prints. So we're going to be using 3 different style tumblers. The program that I use for printing my sublimation is Affinity Photo. So I use Affinity Photo. You can use, Adobe Illustrator, you can use Cricut Design Space, you can use Silhouette to print your sublimation as well. But this is what I've been using since starting my sublimation journey. So I've already downloaded my prints, and the first thing I did was size my canvas for a 20-ounce tumbler. So you'll want to measure your 20 ounces because not all 20-ounce tumblers are sized exactly, but I will put the measurements for the tumbler that I used down in the comments. So once I've gotten my print sized to my canvas that I've laid out, I'm going to go into my print settings, set it to my sublimation printer, and then I end up switching my image so that it's mirrored. So the way that my setup is a little bit different than some other print settings that I'm sure you've seen, but I am using an EcoTank ET2720, and that's the printer that I use to print my sublimation. So we're on to our second print here. And so this print here is for our 11-ounce mug. And so I sized my new canvas here to be 8.5 by 3.5 inches. And that's the exact size of this sort of print that I pulled from Creative Fabrica. So after I've gotten it sized, I've covered up all the way, I'm going to go ahead and print. I'm going to make sure it's on my sublimation printer, go to my media settings, change it to my photo matte printer, make sure it's on the best quality, reverse my image, and then get this one printed. So then we'll do the final one, which is going to be the 16-ounce Lippy cup, so the glass can cup. This sizing, I did 9.8 inches by 4.3 inches. Okay, so I'm changing my canvas every single time so that it prints only what I need, and that way I don't have to worry about needing to size it on the actual tumbler. So dragging and dropping my image, and after I've imported it, and then going to size that on my canvas so that everything is on there, nothing is cut off. Then this will be the last print that I need to go ahead and print. We'll get all of these printed, and then we're gonna head right back to my craft space to be able to get these applied to our cups. So back at my craft station here, these are the 3 sort of, canvases or blanks we're going to be using. I'm using an 11-ounce ceramic mug. This is from Hog. That's going to be for our little Valentine mug. We're going to do a glass can. This glass can, though, is from Ibizen. I did do a video with their glass cans before on my channel, so I'll have a link for them down in the description box. And then finally, we're going to do a 20-ounce sublimation cup, another Hog tumbler here, and we're going to go ahead and get our images cut up so that we can get them taped to our cups. So next thing I'm going to do, of course, is we want to get rid of all the excess sub paper that we have here. I use a sub paper. I get it right off of Amazon. I also use Hippo Sublimation ink. So all of my basic sublimation supplies that I have, they're all linked down in the description box. I didn't really do, anything too in depth on that because really I wanted to talk about this press and using this press with these 3 different kind of, tumbler canvases you can be working on. So we're going to get these images taped to our cups. So I'm starting with the ceramic mug first. And so I'm just going to, of course, put that on the cup just like you would, a wrap, but it doesn't have anything to stick to it. We're going to use our heat resistant tape to get this to sort of be adhered to the mug. When you are taping off your images, your sublimation paper on your cups, you want to make sure that it is very tautly taped onto your cup. You don't want there to be any space in between your paper and your substrate, whatever you're using to sublimate on. You want to make sure that there aren't going to be any spaces because that's going to cause ghosting. So after I've taped sort of the print to the mug, I'm going to go around both the top and the bottom edges just to make sure that everything is nice and secure. So people who probably sublimate a lot would say I'm a bit of an over taper, and I'm okay with that because me taping this much has prevented me from having a lot of ghosting happen. Now, not to say it doesn't happen. Sometimes it does, and you're actually going to see that in this video. It was an error of mine, but because I thoroughly tape and make sure all my edges are really taped off, it prevents me from having any of those typical ghosting situations happening at the top or bottom edges of your image. So we're going to do the same thing with our glass can here. So with the glass can, what I like about the Libby glass can wraps is they're pretty easy to work with. You don't have to worry about like the seams meeting up. I mean, I guess on the ceramic mug, you also don't have to because of course the handle's in the way, but you still want to make sure like the edges are lined up. Whereas this image specifically, because it doesn't have an actual border, I don't really have to worry about it going on a little bit crooked because they're just hard, so you're not really going to be able to tell if for some reason it wasn't exactly lined up in the end result. So taping those top and bottom edges, of course, to make sure that I don't have any ghosting happen with any of the top images. And so once I'm done with this, we'll move on to the third and final. And so I have done a sublimation cup on my channel before, my first sublimation cup on my channel, using a 20-ounce sublimation cup, but using my hog heat press. And so we're going to do the same thing. So you guys have seen me also use like the pinch tool. I do have that. I have 2 of them, but I don't find them very easy to use. And that could be just my own personal preference. I would just much rather like hold it in my hands and really make sure that that piece of paper is really tautly stuck to the cup and then use tape. I feel like the pinch tool for me just gets in my way. I don't know if it's because I'm dominantly left-handed or what the case is, but for whatever reason, it causes me more pain than anything to try and use that. So I like to tape, along the seam first with these kind of seamless patterns. I did have to cut off a little bit more of the edge. So this is a seamless pattern, but because it doesn't have a border, I didn't have to worry about the border edges meeting, but I did realize that I had a little bit more overlap than I needed. So it would have cut off 1/2 of the hearts if I left that excess on. So I just took my scissors and kind of cut around that so I didn't have that issue where some of that print would have been cut off. So then same thing here, I'm going to tape along the seam, 1 long strip, and then I'm going to tape along the top edge and bottom edge just to prevent any potential ghosting that could happen in those areas. So we are back to our press here and we're going to get this turned on. So we have very easy and simple buttons to be able to use. Again, the manual is so simple. There are not a lot of pages, but it literally gives you the step-by-step on what you need to do. So step-by-step, first step, of course, is to turn on your machine. Then using the, the heat and time settings, we're going to go ahead and set our press to the lowest settings of both of them. So I'm starting with the mug. And so with ceramic mugs, it says it's 360 to 480 seconds at 380 degrees to 390 degrees. So I set it to 380 degrees for 360 seconds. So I decided to test everything with the lowest setting because I feel like that really is going to give me a good understanding of how well this presses, because the lower the setting, typically obviously the less amount of heat you're really using on your product. And I wanted to see how nicely everything would come out at the lowest setting. So I did that for all 3 of these substrates we're using, all 3 of the cups we're going to be using, to really just kind of see at the lowest setting how everything worked on the scale that they gave you. So we're letting that, of course, warm up now. Once it is ready to go, that little R will turn green as it is right there. And we're going to go ahead and put our mug in the mug press. So I just scooted it right to the center there. Then you're going to go ahead and push the green button. Make sure you actually push it down. As you can see, I apparently wasn't pushing it down very well. And then we're going to let that count down until it gets to 0. So this doesn't do any sort of beeping or anything when it's done. When it is finished, it just opens back up, and then you know that it's ready to remove your tumbler from the press. So it's all finished. We'll pull that out. I just set that aside on a silicone mat just to keep, my table protected. And then we're going to go ahead and set up the settings for our next cup that we're going to be doing. So the next cup is the glass can. And so the time reference for that is 240 seconds at the lowest setting at 360 degrees. So that's what I set it for. Again, we're doing the lowest setting for all of these just to kind of see how they press. So once that's good to go, the light, of course, will turn green. I'll go ahead and push my glass can in there, and I will close that up here. I did notice with the glass can, I could tell that there was just a little bit of a gap here, and I think that led to the ghosting that I ended up having in my end result, and I'll show you that. It also, I think, could have been the way that I taped it. But I'll talk about that when I reveal these at the end. So final cup we're doing, of course, we're doing the stainless steel cup, so the 20 ounce. We're going to set it to 120 seconds at 370 degrees. So once that turns green, we'll put the next cup in there and let that, of course, press. So all in all, so far, my review, and how I was using this, I only took like an hour, in total, of course, between filming and things to get everything pressed in between, cutting off my camera and things. But I was really impressed with how simple and easy it was. I didn't also feel like I needed to stand there and do anything. I was able to get, other things done as well. So really loving how it presses so far, but we're going to show you the final results, of course, at the end. So last thing I wanted to do was I was curious to see how a 30 ounce tumbler would fit. So unfortunately, my printer does not print prints for a 30 ounce. I'd have to piece them together. But when I put the 30 ounce in the press, it actually fit quite well. Yes, there was a slight gap, but I think that you easily could fix that or solve that by just cutting in half the time that is requested for a cup like that and just rotating it and then pressing it again for the remaining time. I think that would then allow you to press a 30 ounce tumbler. I do wish I did have, a sublimation print for that size cup on hand to try, but I did want to try to see how it fit because I was really curious how well a 30 ounce tumbler would fit in there. So all of the cups are now cool, and of course we're going to give the big reveal. So this is the mug. I was really impressed with how the mug came off. I'm always able to tell how nicely things press based on how much ink is left on my paper. So I really didn't have a whole lot of ink left. The colors are beautiful, very vibrant. Really love how everything pressed nicely. And I didn't have any ghosting on this. So we're going to move to the glass can here, and I'm going to remove that. So again, this was a borderless print. So I didn't need to worry about the edges meeting or anything, but I did end up with a little bit of ghosting on this cup, which I'm going to show you when I reveal it. I did, though, love how bright the colors are. I'm usually not a huge fan of glass can sublimation on glass cans because I feel like you can't really see the images, but I was actually really impressed with this. So really impressed with how bright the colors are. You can tell on my paper where that ghosting happened, and really what happens is there was air there that clearly did not then allow the paper to be flush against the glass can in order to get a really good press. I think that if I would have noticed that gap beforehand, I probably should have cut that time in half and rotated it to be ensured that all of the ink pressed from my paper. And then this was the 20 ounce. I was really thrilled with how all three of these came out. I really think that this is a great press to get, especially if you're someone who does a lot of mugs or does glass cans or even just does 20 ounces. I really think that this is a great press to get. Very easily to use, very simple directions. I really didn't feel like there was a huge learning curve, and I was really impressed overall with how nicely this pressed. So if you guys love today's video, of course, be sure to give today's video a huge thumbs up. And of course, you guys know I will see you in the next one.